Hello, welcome to our fourth review, looking at Scalextric cars that were in the Scalextric catalogues of the 1980s, so from 1980 through to 1989. And today we're going to be looking at the Audi Quattro. This particular model is, as far as I can tell, based on the Audi Quattro A1. It's a slightly longer version than the Audi Quattro S2, which is a bit more compact and was raced later on in the 80s. So this one had a lot of success between 1980 and 1985, and then the S2 really took on from 85 through to the end of the 80s into the early 90s. Now, the Scalextric model itself is based on that successful era. I don't know why, but this model wasn't released by Scalextric until 1989. So you'll find it in the 1989 catalogue. So I don't know why they took almost 4 years to get this car out of production, but there you have it. Anyway, looking at the model itself, you can see there's lots of lovely detail, lots of lovely decals. We've got some nice grills in the bonnet here. We've got these lovely decals. And if we look at the front, you've got these great spotlights, main lights, and these side lights as well. Down the side, again, a beautiful set of decals. You've got door handles, the shut lines for the doors themselves, these great wheels, which we'll come on to a bit later. Round to the back, lovely rear light setup, a nice spoiler. You've got the exhaust pipes in there as well. So again, a very, very well thought out model, very well put together. In fact, one of the nicest that I think we've looked at so far to date. Looking at the chassis, we have the standard guide, so the same guide that we had on our Ferrari 312 T3, the same one on our Mini, the same one that we had on our Mini Metro 6R4 as well. We have the newer Mabuchi motor, so they've got rid of the Johnson motor for this range at last. I think there's no more Johnson motors coming out from the 1980s. Now, what we can do with this car, or rather this car, comes with screws to be able to take the chassis off. It's only one screw, but it's obviously better, in my mind, than bending the chassis like we had to do with the Metro 6R4 and the Mini 1275 GT. So one screw comes out and then that lifts out. The front of the chassis has these locator lugs, and they simply fit into these holes in the body itself here. So looking at the body, again, in a departure from the Metro, which the cockpit wasn't held in, it just fell out, and a departure from the Mini 1275 GT Clubman, where the cockpit was attached to the chassis. In this build, they have what we would more likely see today, where the cockpit itself is attached to the main body via these two lugs here. And not much rattling going on in there, so nice and secure. Now onto the main event. The car itself is very special because it is a four-wheel drive, and the drive to the rear, to the front wheels is via this belt here, and there are pulleys on the wheels, and you can see the pulleys here and here holding the belt. You've also got pulleys on this side as well. However, the difference in the design of the chassis is underneath, in that we have a channel here for the belt to run in, versus the other side where there is no channel, it's just open. So there is actually a defined side for the belt to be. I mean, arguably you could put a second belt on, but the belt itself should be run down this side of the car with this channel. In order to be able to deal with the extra strain that the drivetrain has to have, and also to be able to run this belt, Scalextric have made metal wheels and pulleys. So that's 4 metal wheels and 4 pulleys on each of those wheels. And they've also, I don't know whether you can see that on the camera, but they've also upgraded the pinion on the motor to be metal as well. So a lot of thought, a lot of design thought has gone into this car, not only for the channeling of the drive belt, but also with the pulleys, and with indeed the thinking that the extra strain on the motor is better suited to a metal pinion as opposed to their standard plastic pinions that they push fit on. The other area, I guess, of note on these is we've got bushings on the front, holding the front drive in, because we need to have driven wheels, so bushings at the front and bushings at the rear as well. There is a nice feature here. If I just tuck the wires in, we've got a little like clamp to grab hold of the wires, which keeps them nice and neat and tidy as well. So that's a nice feature. The motor itself is mounted in a very strange way. There's this sort of cantilever system where you've got this sort of flexing, you can just about see that on the camera, flexing up and down, where I can pop the motor out, work on it and pop it back in again. So yeah, very expensive to do that, all in all. Last thing of note on here, we have the exhaust pipes as well. So, you can't help but notice I've got another chassis here. The reason is, when I first started into slot cars, I joined a club that followed the British Slot Car Racing Association rules. And one of the chassis that we raced was this, it's called a Genesis chassis. And we raced on wood tracks. And what you can't fail to notice on this car is that there is no front wheels. Indeed, the way the car balances itself when it goes around corners is on these lugs. So they ride free of the track, and as it goes around the corner and tips over, it balances itself on those lugs. Now this doctrine, this idea that you don't need front wheels, actually crosses over to the hard body race clubs that I now attend. And what we tend to do with those is we raise our axle on the front, or we reduce the tyre size depending on what features we have available to us, in order to make the front of the car just barely touch the track, literally skim the track. And indeed, in certain circumstances, we will swap the front tyres out for what are called zero grip front tyres. And if we're not allowed to do that, then we may well paint the tyres with nail varnish to have a hard finish, so that when they do go around the corner, just as with this car when it tips over like this, when it goes around the corner, these wheels skid. They don't actually do anything other than support the car like a sledge setup that we have here on our Brisker car. So for me, when I saw this four-wheel drive, I was interested in understanding how that would affect it driving, because up until this point, I've literally looked to disengage any grip from the front of a slot car. Whereas with a four-wheel drive system, of course, the idea is that we're going to have grip because we want this car to pull itself out of corners, and so we want to have both grip and drive. So very interested to see this car when I first got it as to how it would drive. So with that part of the review out of the way, let's take it to the track and let's see exactly how it performs. Hello, welcome back Trackside. So we're going to do some laps with the Audi. Again, the idea here is not to do the very fastest laps that we can possibly do. It's more about how drivable is the car. Is it fun to drive? Is it something that's interesting? Would I have been happy had I saved up my pennies as a small boy and bought this car? Our previous cars, you can see the times there, so 6.66 seconds for that Ferrari 312 T3, 9 seconds for the Metro 6R4, and a further 9.61 seconds for the Mini 1275 GT Clubman. So I've cleaned the tyres on the car, just ready, prepped for us to do this quick run, and I will kick it off straight away. One thing to note, I won't be talking through this because the car itself is quite noisy, so there's a lot of background noise on the microphone itself, so I'll just do the laps themselves. First lap is an out lap. The timer doesn't start, it's in the second, as we come through for the second time, that you will start to hear the timer instantiated. So there we have it, 7.17 was our fastest lap, averaging 7.27, so pretty close to 7.17. I don't know whether you saw it or whether it came across on the video. good fun to drive. The back end of this car slides out and then you accelerate out the corners and it straightens up as it goes off in a very rallying style. I don't know whether that was part of their design or just by accident, but yeah, great fun car to drive. A big departure, 7.17, a big departure from our Metro or our Mini 1275 in the 9 seconds. So again, that puts a smile on my face. Again, it's about the feel. The car feels fast enough. The car feels good fun. It's the kind of thing I'd invest a bit of time in, maybe take it a bit further, maybe play with adding some weight, seeing if I can get any other changes, perhaps even look to see if there are any other tyres that I could choose for it. But my feeling of this car is it's a thumbs up from me. It's a great car. So thanks very much for watching. If you want to see the continuation of these reviews, there have been those 3 there. This is our 4th. We have another 2 reviews coming up within this particular set of videos. Please subscribe and I'll let you know as and when I release the next one. But for now, thank you very much for watching and hopefully look forward to seeing you soon.